You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Ken Borland is a South African-based journalist and commentator in cricket, rugby, golf and plenty of other sports. He joins us now. Ken, I want to talk to you about the understrength side coming to New Zealand, but what on earth happened in Cape Town?
Insane. Absolute insanity, Jason. Crazy stuff. Those of us who love cricket, we love it because it throws up remarkable things and incredible things. But I think this went a little bit far. This was beyond the pale, really. And I'll say it right up front, not good for the game of cricket.
Was the wicket really that bad?
You know, the funny thing is, well, clearly the wicket was terrible. The pitch was terrible. But the funny thing was that there were a lot of people who saw the pitch beforehand and thought, it's actually okay. It won't be that bad. The acting CEO of Newlands, he had a look at it. Apparently, he wanted a little bit more grass taken off. The Proteas apparently wanted grass left on. Dean Elgar, obviously winning the toss, he didn't think it was that bad. And he said he was shocked how poorly it played. So, it seems everyone misread the pitch.
And so was there also a degree of poor batsmanship here? Because for a game to finish that quickly and for 33 wickets to fall that quickly, was this poor batting to a degree as well?
I think to a degree, Jason. And I think it's fair to say that modern-day Test batsmen maybe lack the ability to defend for long periods, to really survive in really tough conditions for long periods of time, due to the whole shift in cricket to white ball and T20 and baseball and positive mindsets and all of that. But there were obviously two quality pace attacks bowling on that pitch who had conditions slanted way too much in their favour. And I mean, the other thing about the pitch being misread is that both teams chose a spinner. So no one expected that. And apparently India were going to bat first as well if they'd won the toss.
So you mentioned before, not great for Test cricket. Clearly you want a contest across 5 days. Even the commercial implications of this, of 3 fewer days than would have been planned. Has there been much fallout off the back of this 2-day test?
There has. It's a disaster, really. South Africa plays so little Test cricket these days, and then to have a Test end in 2 days, the whole series was over in 5 days. It's an absolute disaster, and especially because Cape Town is the showpiece test of the summer. The New Year's test, it's the most favoured holiday venue in the country, Cape Town. Beautiful summers, long, hot days. The sun is up until 8, 9 o'clock at night. So definitely the financial implications are huge. And, social media has been full of people saying, jeepers, we had tickets for day 3, but day 3 would have been Friday in South Africa. And then obviously you've got the weekend to come. It should have been sellout crowds.
So the next red ball assignment for the Proteas is a 2-test tour of New Zealand, but it's a vastly inexperienced side that is headed our way, Ken. Can you give us the background to this? Okay,
so the background is that according to Cricket South Africa, the FTP program for 2024 was agreed before they had finalised dates for the SA20 competition. There is some debate about that, the actual, whether that is factually correct or not, but be that as it may. Cricket South Africa have had huge financial challenges over the last few years, as I believe New Zealand cricket have. For those teams who are not in the big 3, those countries, cricket is tough to run these days, and especially Test cricket, which makes a massive loss. Every game that you host as a Test nation, unless you play India, and to a lesser extent Australia and England, you are losing money playing Test cricket. Unfortunately, that is the reality. at the moment. So, to be fair, also, a lot of Cricket South Africa's problems have been due to poor management and the misuse of funds. We saw the whole board sacked, the CEO was sacked, the president was changed, and those fruits are coming to bear now, unfortunately. So the SA20 is very much seen as the silver bullet to Cricket South Africa's financial woes. And part of that was that they had to sell their soul a bit to Indian IPL team owners. And part of the deal was that Cricket South Africa guaranteed that for the SA20, all the best South African players would be available. So anyone who's contracted on a national contract, but also anyone who's contracted to one of the franchises, was expected to make themselves available for the auction for the SA20. And so, there are a lot of fringe players who will probably not even play a match in the SA20, but are unavailable for the test team because of that.
So I see South African coach Shukri Conrad saying, look, our hand's been forced. Everyone understands the SA20 has to happen. It's the lifeblood of local cricket, and the way you've outlined it is it's obviously a huge financial boost for Cricket South Africa. Shukri Conrad says if it doesn't happen, we won't have Test cricket anyway. Look, but it's far from ideal, Ken, isn't it? Because what sort of team have we got coming to New Zealand if all of the best players are going to be in the T20 comp?
Yeah, it's a drastically weakened side. There's no way around it. It's almost like a South Africa C team, I would say. But, there is still, which is why it's so unfortunate that Dean Elgar is not going to be there. If Dean Elgar had been there, you have a ready-made captain. You could then have picked the most informed opener who doesn't have an SA20 contract, and there's a guy called Eddie Moore who plays for Western Province, who's been a very consistent run scorer. But then 3, 4, 5 would be Zubair Hamza, who I think New Zealand have played against before. Keegan Peterson, who was man of the series the last time they played against India. And David Beddingham, who's made a very exciting debut. And so that would have been like quite a decent, solid top 5. All-rounders, 6 and 7 might have been a bit, there would have been inexperience there, certainly. The bowling attack, a guy like Dane Patterson is a very experienced first-class bowler. He's played for South Africa before. He's the kind of guy who's very well suited, I think, to New Zealand conditions. Duan Olivier has played quite a bit of Test cricket, has got a very good record for South Africa, and he's actually bowling really well in domestic cricket at the moment. So, there's a decent new ball pair there. Dane Peet is a very experienced spinner, has played for South Africa before. So, it's not the weakest side imaginable. They're not, absolutely useless. But, we all know how good New Zealand is, and they're going to put out probably a very experienced outfit against a team that's pretty inexperienced. So, it's very disappointing all around, really.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, Ken. How do cricket fans feel? How do you feel as a long-time follower of the game there that it's come to this, that the white ball imperatives have trumped Test cricket?
Yeah, it's bleak, Jason. It's bad enough that for the next 5 years, South Africa only play 2 Test series. That's like losing a member of your family. And then you have a 2-day test at Newlands. That's meant to be the high point of the summer. The blows keep coming, and then we send a team of, we hope they're plucky, and we hope they're determined, and we hope that they do well. But it's not ideal, even close to ideal. It's just sad, really.
So how do the two coexist? I mean, you're right about Test cricket. You're so right. It's a money pit, isn't it? Even though it's the bedrock of the game in many respects, and the tradition of red ball cricket, surely cannot be lost. But how do the two, white ball and red ball cricket, at international level, happily coexist?
Well, there needs to be stronger leadership from the governing body of cricket, which is the ICC. And, there's been a lot of criticism of what South Africa have done from Australia in particular. Some of it's been a bit ironic, considering some of the, Australia have pulled out of a tour of South Africa during COVID when cricket South Africa bent over backwards, to try and meet their every whim. And they weren't willing to tour. And I have to say that, the feeling over here in South Africa is that New Zealand aren't entirely blameless in this, because South Africa toured New Zealand during COVID, made a lot of sacrifices for a tour that was apparently absolutely vital to keep New Zealand cricket afloat. Cricket South Africa offered to play this series during the IPL, when both teams will be without their IPL players. New Zealand cricket refused. But as Steve Waugh, I think it was, you said that, the bottom line is that the International Cricket Council needs to be running cricket better. They need to be actually making sure that Test cricket is properly run. This business of 2 Test series is nonsense. How do we have a World Test Championship where 3 teams play a big 5 Test series? And I know New Zealand are on the same boat as South Africa, that New Zealand will play a lot of 2 Test series because you simply cannot afford to play more. So there's got to be some sort of fund. There's got to be some sort of help given to keep Test cricket alive, and to sort out these. When there are scheduling fiascos like this, the ICC needs to step in and be an independent broker and say, right, well, we've heard both sides' arguments. This is what will happen. To maintain the integrity of the game. Because I guarantee you that if some team decided to send like a C team to a World Cup or something, the ICC will very quickly step in and impose sanctions. And maybe that's what we need to see for Test cricket as well.
Ken, it's always fascinating to get your insight. It's always enjoyable chatting to you. I know our listeners will have a bit to say as well, so we might open the lines on this, but always good to see you, mate. Thanks for taking the time for a chat. And we look forward to seeing your plucky South Africans down here in New Zealand in the next month or so. Thanks for your time.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday, or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.